Good. That's great, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. So, as Trudy's just said, I'm Emma, um, and we've worked together. If you were on the last session, you'll know we've worked together for quite a long time now. Between us, we've got vast experience as safeguarding leaders and DSLs, and we've worked in schools similar to those that your children are in. We're parents and champions for children. Now, being a parent, although it plays a huge part in my life, doesn't always play a huge part in my working life, but tonight it absolutely does. What I want to make really clear is when I've done courses or workshops, etc., on gaming before, it seems to be that the attitude is you shouldn't let your children do that. It's really dangerous. It's going to rot their brains and it's terrible. What I can assure you is we're not here to pass that message on tonight because actually children are really into gaming at the moment. I think as much as we blame many things on COVID, I think there was a huge increase on internet usage around that time. And of course, so many of our children rely on gaming now for their social time and interacting with their friends. And actually, as somebody's just said as we were talking before the session started, many of us as parents are gamers. Now, I don't claim to be a gamer, but my husband is an absolutely avid gamer. My house is full of various bits of kit. We've got the Oculus VR headsets, we've got Nintendo Switches, we've got PlayStations, there's an Xbox, and my eldest child, who's 11, has recently had a gaming PC. So we really are kind of ticking all of the boxes there, which means I really need to keep on my toes with what's going on. So, as Trudy said, so much of the information today will kind of be an overview, but then we're really excited to send you an information pack following this session. So that will come out next week to you via the school. And it will give you just a little bit more in-depth information. It will recap what we've talked about tonight, but it'll also have a little bit more in terms of specifics. So if there's anything tonight that you think, well, that's great in theory, but how does that work? Hopefully it will be in there. And if it isn't, please, 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 and I know many of you did after the last session, please reach out to us. Feel free to contact us. You can find us online, reach us on social media, or you've got our email addresses, or can certainly get those from the school. And we're really very happy to give you any information we can, because actually this session is for you. It's about making it really useful, really relevant. Trudy's keeping an eye on the chat tonight. If at any point you kind of want to interrupt me, I can only see Trudy's face at the moment, but if you let her know in the chat and she can stop me and just give me a nod, I'm really happy to have that conversation, but I'm also conscious of your time, especially if you've got little ones running around. So we're going to have a look at PEGI ratings very briefly, just to give us an overview of kind of what kind of games could we expect our children to be playing. Types of online games. We will look at the benefits of online gaming. Now, when I was putting this session together, my husband did have a hand in it because he knows, quite frankly, more than I do on some aspects of gaming. And he did say to me, please make sure you tell them that it's really brilliant as well. Because for him, it is really brilliant. It's where he makes his friendships. It's where he keeps in touch with people he knows. And I'm seeing that in my children as well. And what I don't want to do is kind of scare everybody off allowing their children to experience that, because it really can be lovely. Of course, the flip side of that is we will look at the risks of online gaming, and then we're going to briefly touch on incel awareness as well. We've got something exciting to tell you at the end of the session linked to that. So our PEGI ratings, you've probably seen these on games. So similar to how we have on films, we would have our 12 and our PG and our U ratings. In games, we've got the Pan-European Gaming Information System. And this tells us what age they think the game is appropriate for. Now, what's really important to remember here, this is talking about the content and how appropriate the content is, rather than how difficult the game is. So actually, you could have a game that's really, really incredibly tricky and quite frankly is aimed at adults. But if there's no offensive content in it, it may well be rated a 3 or a 7. Similarly, you may have a game that's really easy and, you know, any child could pick up an iPad and after a couple of hours they'd have a good clue of how to do it. But if it's got violence or sexual content or inappropriate language, then of course we would expect it to be a 16 at the very least. Okay. Just to give you an overview, because I've recently spoken to some year 5s and 6s in a primary school, and the games that they were naming weren't those kind of PEGI 3, PEGI 7s. They really were our 12s, 16s and 18s. So just to let you know for your context, a 12 is infrequent mild violence. Okay, a 16 is moderate violence, and an 18 is realistic and intense combat. So with a 12, what you might see, something like Fortnite, for example, somebody may get killed in the game. Okay, they may get shot in the game, they might get stabbed in the game, which all sounds incredibly horrific, and it's absolutely up to you to determine whether or not your child's got the maturity to handle that. But what that won't show you is death. It won't show you bleeding. It won't show you somebody lying on the floor. Whereas in a Peggy 18, you're absolutely going to see that kind of content. Really isn't appropriate for children at all. Okay. So back within the realms of what we would possibly be expecting our children to be playing, and I know I've just had kind of confirmation of this from someone in the chat, sandbox games. Now, sandbox games are incredibly popular with my children and all of their friends. The Minecraft movie has just come out, so there may be even more hype around it in your house than normal. And it's a type of video game that gives players the freedom and the flexibility to explore, to create, and to interact with the game world. So rather than following a linear story like games we may have played historically, they've got no objective really other than to enjoy it and to have fun. This is particularly true of Minecraft. So there's open-ended gameplay, there's exploration and creativity. It's a really fun place actually for children to explore gaming and to develop those skills as well. Roblox is slightly different. We're going to come on to both of these in a little bit more detail just after I've gone through types of games. But ultimately, a sandbox game technically wouldn't have the expectations on children that other games may have. So it's a little bit of a safer space for them to be. Role-playing games, I will just say before I move on that Roblox actually straddles those two. So although it is a sandbox game by definition, many of the games on Roblox, and again, I'll explain a little bit more about this shortly, but they are role-playing games too. So it doesn't matter how we categorise them. I just want to make you aware of what's out there. But ultimately, our role-playing games are typically those where we're taking on the roles of characters, we're engaging in storytelling, character development, and it might be that there's missions to complete to level up your character. Typically, it would be things like Pokemon. Animal Crossing. I don't know if any of you have played Animal Crossing. My son had it a few years ago, and within about a week, I had the book too. It's actually a really lovely game to play as a family. It's very wholesome. There's lots of fishing and camping and planting flowers. It's all quite lovely. They encourage you to be the character. My only reservation here is on some games, such as Roblox, there may be a role play where maybe you're a criminal, or maybe you're an escapee or something like that. And of course, I'll leave it to your imagination how that can flow with children, especially if they are playing multiplayer and have other children talking to them at the same time. Okay. So multiplayer shooting games. Now, popular games here, and I would say the most popular to concentrate on today is Fortnite. Now, Fortnite is a 12 rating, okay? However, in conversations with year fives and sixes, and actually some year threes and fours thinking about it at a recent school, children are playing Fortnite. Okay, now we could sit here tonight and we could say to you, your children should be 12 to play Fortnite. Tell them they're not allowed. Okay, I'm not naive to the fact that actually there is peer pressure. They do go for play dates at friends' houses. And quite frankly, Fortnite is free to download. So if you haven't got that level of parental control over the device your child's playing on, be that an Android tablet or an iPad or a Nintendo Switch or whatever it may be, they can actually just download it. Okay. So although you may be thinking, well, it's a 12, my children aren't 12, let's not be oblivious to the fact that actually so many of them are involved in these games. And just to let you know, there's a lot of research going on. I've read through a lot actually recently, and there are people saying, it causes desensitization to violence. It's really damaging. It's really horrific. Actually, the jury's still out on that. Okay. What I would say, and I've seen this myself with children that I know, it does encourage that play fighting behaviour. And sometimes maybe that can become a little more aggressive than we'd like. And of course, fear, nightmares, anxiety, all of these things. So it's just about making sure your child can handle that. And they might not be 12, but actually, if they're playing with you, I know lots of mums and dads play Fortnite too. It may be that it's deemed a suitable activity. You may not want them going and sitting in their bedroom on headphones playing Fortnite with a complete stranger. Okay. Trudy, how's the chat? Are we all good to keep going?
Yes, please. Yeah, keep going.
Great.
It's great.
So we've talked about Roblox. Now, somebody said to me at the start, my daughter talks about Roblox. I don't know what it is. Okay. Hopefully from today you will. What's really important to know about Roblox is not a single game. Okay. It's not just one game. They log on, they play Roblox. It doesn't work like that. So it's a platform where a variety of people can upload their own content. So anybody with the knowledge, and actually, it doesn't take a huge amount of knowledge, can design and create their own game on Roblox. Okay. Now, many of the Roblox games are the kind of imaginative play that we'd see in the playground. So it's things like building a park, maybe you're a racing driver. I know at the moment a really popular one is called Dress to Impress. So it's starring in a fashion show, becoming a superhero. There's lots of things. However, there is some content as well that maybe isn't quite so suitable for young children. Now, there's not a strict age minimum on Roblox. However, it's got different ratings for content. So we've got our all ages, which may have some fantasy violence. Okay. 9 plus, 13 plus, and then 17 plus, which is mature content, and they'll require age verification. This is all good and well. However, as I was explaining to Trudy yesterday, if we program a computer to believe something, it believes it, right? So if Netflix has Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but is told it's a PG, and you filter your Netflix account to show your child anything that's PG or below, it could potentially show them the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay. And all I'm doing there is illustrating the point that if somebody uploads content that is, by all accounts, adult, mature content, but they rate it as a 9 plus, and you've got an 11-year-old who you've allowed to go on any game that's 9 plus, we're potentially exposing them to something that's inappropriate. And that's the real risk with Roblox. It's not moderated until it's reported. And because things are created so swiftly and it's ever changing, it's going to be very different day by day. What I would say as well, just to be mindful, on Roblox games, you have a lobby. So it might be that a certain game takes, it can't be played unless you've got 10 people trying to play the game. So while we're building up to 10, you'll wait in a lobby. Now, in this lobby, unless your settings are very tight, there'll be free chat. So there'll be voice chat, there'll be text chat. And some of the things I have witnessed in those lobbies are quite frankly horrific. You'll have people logging on with really malintent, actually, not intending to play a Roblox game, just saying really spiteful, hurtful things. I've seen racism, I've seen misogyny, I've seen hate speech, I've seen you should go and kill yourself. Why don't you go and hang yourself? I really am talking horrific things. Please, please, please be very clear around the privacy settings on Roblox, and it will come through in the information pack as well, but there's also a lot of information online for various devices. Okay. Now, yesterday at about 5 o'clock, I was feeling quite smug because this content was written and it was great and it was ready to deliver to you, and I was very happy with it. And then at about 9:15 last night, my email pinged, and it was an email from Roblox because they like to keep us on our toes. So we've got an update from Roblox in between me finishing writing this session and delivering it you this evening. And this is the email as I received it. I've just put a screenshot in there. So just to let you know, I've got a parent account set up for my youngest Roblox account. My husband has one for my eldest, and they've written to us to let us know they've now increased the parental controls. We've got 3 new ways of help keeping it secure. Okay, so we've got friend blocking. So now as parents, we can view the child's friend list and we can block or report users. The last time I logged on to my youngest Roblox with him, he'd got something ridiculous like 37 friend requests. He didn't know any of these people, they didn't know him. Potentially they were all children just looking to make new friends. Potentially they weren't. Okay, so now we can remove people, we can block them, and if we suspect that there's anything untoward there, we can report users as well. So we've also got experience blocking. So in addition to Roblox's existing maturity setting, which we were just talking about, parents can now block specific games and experiences. Okay, so they're not playable by your child. They'll still appear in search results. It's not completely foolproof. They'll see that they can't access this game. But actually, we would really encourage just openness and transparency with your children. I'll let you play Roblox, but you're not allowed to play this one, this one, this one, or this one, for example. Okay, and then also top game insights. So it's now giving us insights on the child's screen time, and it's giving us, and I love this, the ability to set a daily limit. Okay, so it lets us see the top games they've played, how long they spent in each one. It may be that if you've noticed a change in your child's behaviour, frustration, language they're using, you can actually pinpoint it. Now, again, in an ideal world, I'd love to say, let's sit next to them while they're playing. No headphones, we want to hear everything that's going on. And that's wonderful. But actually, for full disclosure, my children are both playing on their iPads right now, okay? Which is what puts me in the position to share this with you. Yes, their dad is downstairs with them. I suspect he's probably not sat between them, Okay, so this is coming from a place of absolute transparency and honesty for you. I'm not going to sit here and say, no, iPads are terrible. Actually, we rely on them quite heavily sometimes. The world is a very different place. You know, I know that we've all seen children in restaurants on iPads. We've got our own thoughts on these various things. But as a social activity, so many children are doing this in their free time. You know, children don't typically go out on bikes down the park like they used to, or go over a field to build a den. And as me and Trudy were talking yesterday, you know, we were saying we didn't want to do that as children, actually. You know, it used to be that we'd sit in with a book or we'd be colouring, whereas now this is what children are enticed by. Okay, so Minecraft. I wanted to focus on Roblox and Minecraft because I think they're really huge within primary age children, actually. So we like Minecraft. It gives us opportunities to build, explore, and survive. Now, there are two modes to Minecraft. We've got survival mode and we've got creative mode. In creative mode, it's just free play. It's effectively an infinite world. You know, there are parameters, but the children, as far as they're concerned, it's infinite. You can generate different types of world, different terrain, different times of day, different weather, etc. And you can have lots of fun. There's also survival mode, which is a little bit more true to life in as much as your character has to survive. So if there's a storm, you need to survive. If it's nighttime, you need to find shelter. You'll get hungry, and actually with too much hunger, your character could die. So you need to hunt for food, you need to cook food, you need to build fires, etc. So for slightly older children, it's brilliant, actually. It's a really fun game. It's something they can really get their teeth stuck into. However, it does also have scope for frustration when things don't quite go right. There's also a multiplayer social aspect to Minecraft, which adds a really fun layer, and it lets them work as a team. You can pay for various things, although Minecraft is a chargeable game, you do pay for the game. But on top of that, you can pay for realms and things that are internet based rather than device based. And if you've got that set up and you pay that fee for it, they can share their worlds with their friends, which is wonderful and really lovely, until, of course, they have a fallout at school and one of their friends comes on and destroys the camp they've made or kills all of their pets or whatever it may be. So just be really mindful, actually, if you're buying something for your child but then opening up to others. Okay, so we have got the multiplayer features that I've just touched on. In addition to what I've just said, we've also then got unmoderated chat. Okay, so there's risk of inappropriate language or conversations. We obviously have the risk of strangers and online predators. Now, as much as that sounds really intense and really severe and scary, it is the crux of why we're here tonight. You know, gaming is a way to access children in the same way that, you know, in the 80s, maybe people were waiting in parks. Now they're waiting in Roblox lobbies. And it really is as simple as that. Okay. And then, of course, cyberbullying. Players can experience mean or aggressive behaviour from others. And actually, sometimes our children can act in a way that we maybe wouldn't expect them to act in real life. We've all heard, I'm sure, the term keyboard warrior. And there's a real significant risk, actually, that children don't necessarily make the connection between them saying something online and it impacting somebody the way it would in real life. We've all heard horror stories about children being driven to self-harm, etc., through online cyberbullying. It really is something we need to keep a really close eye on and be very clear with our children that wouldn't be tolerated. Okay, so I have mentioned a few ways that gaming's lovely, and it really is. It really can be a rewarding thing, either to do as a family or for your children to have some downtime. My eldest son's autistic, and actually going on a game is his way of unwinding, making his brain focus on something that isn't the day he's just experienced. And half an hour online really does reset him to have a lovely family evening. So it encourages social play. We're providing platforms for people to interact, collaborate, and compete with others. Okay, so we can join together in teams or compete. So it might be cooperative in games like Minecraft or competitive games like Fortnite. They need to communicate and work with others to succeed. So Fortnite, on the whole, is a competitive game. If you're playing solo, you're trying to beat the other people. You're trying to get a victory royale. If you've heard your children talk about that, that's coming first. It's been last man standing. I can assure you it's incredibly exciting when your husband gets a victory royale. You hear the whole house erupt. You can also play cooperatively. So you can join in squads, you can have other friends, you can listen to them on headphones or through the speakers, and you can work as a team to be the last team standing. It can be really, really lovely, but of course there is that slight element of violence in it as well. So we've got in-game chat and voice communication. So it may be that we can talk in real time. It may that we can text. What I would say, and if you were here last time, we will have touched on this briefly. So much more frequently now, we're seeing children aren't necessarily using the chat options in game. So it may be that they're on Minecraft, but they're not talking through Minecraft, or they may be on Roblox, but they're not using Roblox's chat room. They may have an app such as Discord or Twitch, which allows you to talk to people. Okay. So it's effectively like watching Netflix and your next door neighbor watching Netflix and you texting each other at the same time talking about it. And then we've also got community and guilds. So guilds is a little bit more World of Warcraft. I touched on it earlier. It's a role-playing game, typically not as frequently accessed by young children, but it could well be. And it gives a real sense of community. So it brings together people with shared interests. It can obviously give that sense of belongings. And there are so often in-game events. Okay. So my son's actually part of an organisation called Spectrum Gaming, and it's a gaming organisation for children with autism. And it has given him more friends for a start, but more of a sense of belonging than I've ever known him to have in his whole 11 years. We've recently done a real life meetup with these children, and normally, a real life meetup with children of his own age would have horrified him, but he had the most wonderful time. And that's because they've been able to bond and find shared interests online and really build up that relationship without the pressure of the real life stress and situation. So it really can be a wonderful platform, and it just needs to be used with caution and care. So often, as parents, we do worry, don't we? They're spending so much time online. Why aren't you outside? Why aren't you with your friends? But actually, we really can flourish online. Okay, it really can be a shared experience. And I think it's about picking out the benefits and working out, what do we want our children to get from this? How can they benefit? And what do we need to pop in place to make sure that it's done effectively and safely? Okay. Moving on from the benefits then, the risks of online gaming. So outside of those risks within the games themselves, let's have a look at the wider sense. Gaming addiction and screen time issues. Gaming addiction is a real thing, okay? It really is. And that's because online games are designed to be so engaging. We can have people play games, and I've seen it in my own son, especially on days when he's maybe been off school or he's been unwell, and time just flies. It'll be a bank holiday and he'll want to go on his computer, and I'll say, you've got half an hour. And you walk in, he's like, Mum, it's been 3 minutes, because time just flies, because they're designed to be so engaging. So it can lead to children playing for hours and struggling to stop. It can lead to them doing things like skipping homework, skipping sleep, so maybe staying up late, and skipping physical activity. I remember catching my younger sister with a Nintendo DS under her pillow one night at about 11 o'clock, because obviously they think we don't know these things. So it's just about being really mindful. Maybe devices come out of bedrooms. Maybe they're only in shared family areas. Maybe at 7 o'clock they're all turned off and they're put away until the next day. Whatever works for your family and your household, it's just making sure that we're really on top of that, and being really clear actually that it's a privilege, isn't it? And it's within the realms of our expectations. So we can set time limits, and it says here using parental controls. Now, that's something I've never done. And I've never done it because I've always been incredibly clear with my children that when we say it's time to come off, it's time to come off. And we'll be reasonable and say, 5-minute warning, 10-minute warning. Actually, when we say put it away, we put it away. And I think that that's worked only because we've done that from the very, very beginning. And we've got some friends whose children maybe didn't game typically, and have recently started, and they're struggling with that. Now, that's not me saying I've got it figured out, because who knows, my children could absolutely refuse to come off tonight. But typically, because they've got that clear guideline and expectation, it does tend to work. Okay. Encourage breaks, encourage outdoor play, and of course balance with other activities. So you can play on your tablet for a bit, but then we're going to bake a cake, or you're going to help me make dinner, or you can play on your tablet, but then we're going to lay the table, whatever that may be. Okay. Frustration and the emotional impact of gaming. Now, we see this particularly in younger children. They struggle with playing the game. Okay. They struggle with getting things to do what they want them to do. And it can, of course, lead to frustration. And then this can lead to anger or stress. Okay. How do we reduce this? So we teach them healthy gaming habits, like taking breaks when frustrated. Now, something we do in our house, and I was sharing this with Trudy yesterday, we're very, very clear that gaming is there to be fun. Okay. The moment it stops feeling fun, we stop doing it. In the same way that if you, I don't know, put a TV show on and you didn't like it, you turn it off. Or you put a new jumper on and it's really itchy, you take it off. So when it stops serving you in the way you want it to serve you, we stop. Okay, so it's just about teaching those healthy habits and help them to understand it's just a game and losing's okay. And actually, I think there's a lot to be said for children learning to lose sometimes. I know in many schools now, things like sports day, etc., we maybe don't have winners and losers. We have thank you so much for taking part. And that's got its place and it can be wonderful. But actually, as children go through life, sometimes they're not going to be first, second, or third. And this is a really safe way of teaching them that, because ultimately, if they don't win in the game, that's okay. Nothing changes, and it's just about helping them to keep that in context and perceive that. Okay. So in-game purchases and microtransactions. Now, I've mentioned Minecraft, how we pay to play that, and I've mentioned that Fortnite's free to download and Roblox is free to download. However, children can accidentally spend real money without realising it. Now, of course, for them to do that, it must be linked to a credit card, debit card, PayPal account, whatever that may be. Okay, unless they've got Apple Pay enabled, just be mindful of that if they're using your phone or iPad. And they might not recognise what they're doing. So some games will have items or skins or upgrades that you can buy. So in Fortnite, you may have somebody who's really into Spider-Man. You know, you might have a little girl who loves to be Spider-Man, and when she's playing, it pops up that you can be Spider-Man, and it costs $5.99 or it costs 100 V-Bucks. Okay, so V-Bucks are our currency in Fortnite, and it may be that they go and buy them because it's called V-Bucks, so surely that's not real money. Okay, but they cost real money. We've also got games that use loot boxes. So this is where something may be dropped in the game or you discover it in the game, and it tells you that it's going to have various things in it. And it might tell you that you've got a 40% chance of getting the golden item, okay, the best of the best, but actually, 60% chance that you won't. But then it's really exciting to have another go and another go and another go, okay? We've also got pay to win mechanics, which encourages gambling-like behaviour. So these are things that you can buy in the game to ultimately give you an advantage over other players. So you're effectively exactly that, paying to win, paying to be better, paying to have an increased chance of winning. Okay. And once children start doing this, it can be really quite difficult to stop. And it really is gambling behaviour. It's really something to watch, especially in those free-to-play games. So it's great, the games are free, but it's so easy to go and spend money in them. So please do disable in-app purchases and make sure you've got a password set up for transactions so your children can't just click. And consider using prepaid gift cards. So, in Tesco and Sainsbury's, you've got your gift cards for all the various things. You've got Boots and you've got Uber Eats and whatever's on there. You can get V-Bucks for Fortnite. You can get Minecoins for Minecraft. You can get Robux for Roblox. And they are uploaded to the game. And once they're gone, they're gone. Okay. A word of warning on Roblox, some of them will remain. So you could buy, I don't know, an outfit or an avatar on Roblox and it will stay there indefinitely. Some things are game specific, and when you log off of that game, they're gone. So my little boy bought a pet dog in a game the other week, very, very excited. He logged off the next day, the dog was gone. And that's a really easy way to get lots of money out of children. So just be really mindful and just keep an eye on what they are doing. Okay. So our takeaways for that, we really would recommend consider or not whether or not you'd allow your child to pay to win. What are the messages there? Is that something we want to encourage? And enforce spend limits. So maybe ensure you need to approve all purchases so you don't get a nice surprise when your bank statement comes through. Okay. Exposure to inappropriate content. So we've talked about how user-generated content in things like Roblox means children can encounter inappropriate or violent content. Make sure your content filters are on, parental controls are on, and encourage your children to report inappropriate content or players. Now, that comes with a caveat from me. They absolutely can do it. They can hit a button, it will go to Roblox. I really recommend you getting involved in that. So let them tell you, what was it about this that wasn't okay? Because that gives you such a beautiful in to really important conversations. Okay. You're not happy with this player. What did they do? Why do you think they acted that way? What can we do now together? Okay. We'll report them, we'll block them so you don't have to play with them again. And sometimes that might just help your child think about their own conduct or the conduct of friends that they're typically playing with as well. Okay. It's a really nice way of opening those conversations. Online safety and stranger interaction. So, as we've said, we've got online multiplayer modes. It could be that children are talking to strangers. They may be rude or inappropriate or even predatory. Okay. They may be exposed to cyberbullying or toxic behaviour from other players. And they may, of course, learn bad language from voice or text chat. Some games, so some Roblox games, and I actually think it's all Roblox games if you've got the parental controls set up correctly, they will effectively beep out any bad language. So it will kind of cover it in hashtags or stars or something. One of my youngest son's friends took great delight in working out which words would and would not be filtered in Roblox. And I can confirm from that exercise that it's quite stringent and it is quite good. But of course, children are forever finding ways around these and finding loopholes. So what I would say is please don't rely on the game mechanisms to keep your child safe. Please, please, please do, of course, be as involved and as present as possible to make sure that they are safe. So what would we recommend? Disable voice and text chat or set it to friends only. Okay. It may be that actually, if you're around and they've got some friends at school and they've been talking all day about playing Roblox, of course, we want them to be able to interact and socialise, but just make sure it's moderated. Okay. Use parental controls to limit online interactions and teach children to block and report toxic players. After we've just said, it's really, really lovely if you can get involved in that. So, how to guide your child in safe and positive interactions. Okay. First of all, open and trusting communication. I've said a few times tonight about being honest and transparent with your children. Talk to them about it. This isn't something they need to hide away. It's not that, playing online is a terrible thing and I can't really share it with dad or with mum. Absolutely they can. Get involved in their digital life in the same way that we would get involved in their real life. So what do they enjoy? Who do they interact with? Have they got any concerns? Is there anything that is worrying them? Reassure them they can always come to you if something makes them uncomfortable without fear of punishment. So if they've played on a Roblox game and actually it wasn't quite the game they thought and they've heard something quite concerning, they're not in trouble with you. They need to be able to talk to you because actually when they're in fear of being in trouble, that's when things get hidden. And then teach them to recognise red flags. So we talk in safeguarding all the time about trusting our gut instinct, okay? Children have that too. Arguably sometimes even better than we do as adults. If children feel that something's not quite right, something's probably not quite right, okay? So let's strengthen our privacy and our security awareness. So our children are never to share personal information, okay? Things like their real name, their address, their school name, photographs of themselves. Use strong passwords and never share them except with parents. I personally recommend that you as the parents set all of this up yourselves. We don't rely on the children to set up passwords. We can do that for them and we can hold the password because that way they can't access anything without us knowing they're accessing it. Okay. And be cautious of strangers online. So explain why they should never chat privately with somebody they don't know. Okay. So adolescence. I can't see the chat, but I'd be really interested to know if you could just indicate to Trudy who has seen Adolescence. Can you just pop a yes in the chat if you have seen it on Netflix? Have we got many, Trudy?
They're coming through now, and yeah, we've got a couple of yeses there, three yeses. I saw it within days of it coming out onto Netflix. So powerful. So there might be more, but yeah, we've got four yeses
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah, and it is powerful. Now you may be sitting there thinking, this is supposed to be about gaming. Like, what's she talking about this? Actually, I'm talking about this because right now it's everywhere. Okay. Children are talking about it, parents are talking about it, educators are talking about it. There's talk of it being shown in schools. And actually, there is a link to online gaming. Okay. So for those of you that haven't seen it, it focuses around a young boy who is accused of murder. Incel stands for involuntary celibate. And it originally referred to those struggling with dating. So typically men who struggled with dating and blamed the women for that, actually. However, some online incel communities have become quite toxic, promoting misogyny, victimhood, and in extreme cases, violence. Okay. Now, how children can encounter this. So young boys can stumble upon incel content through social media, gaming communities, and then things such as YouTube and forums. Okay. So it'll often start with jokes or memes about loneliness, rejection, and gender roles, which can escalate into more extreme views. Right. The reason we've touched on this today is because there absolutely is a link to those conversations that happen in gaming lobbies, on chats, in text chats. And we've had an absolute outpouring of requests for this to be covered, quite frankly. So we're touching on it briefly tonight, but what we will share with you is if you've had the guide for these sessions, in reaction to that request, we are actually making the next session in cell awareness. So you'll still get the full program. Everything will be covered. But setting healthy boundaries and staying safe outside of school will now take place in June. Okay. And in May, we're going to have our in-cell awareness session. So there will inevitably there be links to gaming, phone usage, internet usage, lots and lots of things that we've already touched on, but it'll be really specifically focused on helping keeping our children safe and educating them. Okay. I'm going to pop over to here just briefly so you've got our website address, and then I'm going to stop sharing because what I've tried to do is just leaves a little bit of time at the end for a conversation, because actually I think what's really useful is hearing what does it look like in your house? You know, how are we handling gaming at home? Have we got people who absolutely just have nothing to do with it and our children aren't interested? And is there anything we've said tonight that maybe doesn't sound like it'd work for you? And can we have a chat around that? Okay.
Emma, thank you. There are a couple of things I'm going to start us off with, if I
Yeah,
may.
please.
Um, Dylan asked the question about whether there is um, a parent control as well for Minecraft, in the same way that you can have a parent console for Roblox, because you can have it for Roblox. Is there one for Minecraft?
That's a really good question. I don't know is the very quick
Mhm.
answer, I'm afraid, because how we've done it in our house is typically if my children are playing Minecraft, they'll be playing on a realm with my husband, and they play that together. That's something that they do together. My instinct is to say no, there's not actually, because I've never come across it, and I suspect we would have come across it. Um, what I would say is, on the whole, and this is only my personal opinion, I think Minecraft is potentially less risky than Roblox. So I suspect you might not need that platform in the same way.
Okay, and you mentioned about Minecraft being payable. Is it always payable?
Yes, you have to pay to download the game. And just to let you all know, because this has caught us out, if you own it on one device and then you want it on another device, you have to pay again.
Okay. Okay. Um, wow, that's quite
Mm,
something, isn't it? And can I ask you before others chip in about the pay to win?
yeah.
Because you alluded to that in the section on the monetization of gaming,
Mm,
which when you were taking me through yesterday is both kind of it's an incredible raw capitalist model, and fair play to the people who have thought this up, but it's also it's very cynical as
yeah.
well in lots of ways. And I think it would be helpful to explain a bit more about pay to win and
Mm,
how that could be quite compulsive and also potentially exploitative as well.
yeah.
And where you said earlier about gaming can encourage learning how to lose. It strikes me that pay to win um, is a bit of an imposition on that, because
Mhm.
actually you can pay and gain advantage.
Yeah.
So more on that, Emma, I think would be great
Yeah,
to run
absolutely.
with.
So it's if we picture it as being, let's use Marvel because we used the Marvel example earlier. So Marvel had a collaboration with Fortnite probably a few years ago now. And you could have been Spider-Man, you could have been Hulk, you could have had Thor's hammer, you could have had Spidey's webs, all of these different things. And it may be that some of those things gave you an advantage, but they weren't the things that were free. So there were many bits that were free, of course, once you, right, let me go back here. You can pay for a battle pass on Fortnite, okay? And when you pay for that battle pass on Fortnite, what that does is it gives you the opportunity to earn various things throughout that season. Okay, so once you've paid for it, if you get, and this is my naivety here, because although I understand the concept of Fortnite, it's not something I've played. But I think it's if you get kind of say 500 points, you get to level 50, you get this item for free. And then when you get to level 60, you get this item for free, and level 80, this item for free. Now, of course, if you pay for that battle pass for your children, as we do, and then they don't achieve those levels, well, they don't get those items. Okay, so you've paid, but they don't get the items. Now, with pay to win, it may be that some of those items they've earned them, and that's great. But actually, you might be able to get another item that does cost a little bit more money, but it gives you an advantage over other players. So it's really, really dangerous territory for children that just want to win the game, especially those who maybe are a little bit younger and are being paired with 99 more experienced players and quite frankly won't win unless they pay to win. And then when that doesn't work, maybe they'll pay to win again or pay a little bit more to win. So it's really tricky. It's almost the equivalent of a slot machine. You know, every time you feel that little bit closer, so you put a bit more money in, it's very much like that.
Mm. Thank you. I think that was it was quite something for me to realize really how how people are at risk of being primed to learn how to be tantalized so much more by gambling effectively. That's what they've used the kind of psychology of gambling, haven't they? And how we tell ourselves certain things about statistics and probability to encourage us to want to participate. So I think it's really worth mentioning because that's something just to watch out for. Around the issue of Minecraft, I was just having a look. There are parent controls on Minecraft, but I was looking then for a console.
Yeah.
Um, it says yes, but I'm seeing very mixed messages from what Minecraft and others are saying. So I think there's a bit of research work
Okay.
for us to.
I haven't come across one. That's all I can,
Mm,
that's all I can say.
mm, yeah. Thank you. Right, so over to all of you then, and what else can we support with? There's a lot to take in here, and now I'm hearing this content for the second time. A few things in here I knew about before, but there was a whole load of learning when Emma took me through this. So I'm very happy to take questions because, as we say, and also comments and shares about your experiences and things
Mhm.
that you're most concerned about and the things you think you've got sorted and what maybe other people can learn from. Really, really welcome your input. Who would like to contribute?
I've just scrolled through the chat, can confirm that Trudy did used to call Roblox roadblocks. But also with Minecraft, I'm saying it's never free. I actually suspect, and we would need to check this, but I actually suspect if you have the kind of the old browser version kind of on a computer, I think there is a way of getting that for free. But typically, what I've based tonight's session around is kind of the tablet, iPad, Switch kind of generation that we may be talking about with primary children. So, of course, there probably is a way if they go with the older version, but just bear in mind with that, it might not be compatible with certain things, certain aspects, and they may not be able to play cross platform with other children. So, if they want to play with their friends who's got an Android tablet or an iPad or a Nintendo, or whatever that may be, I suspect they couldn't do cross platform play.
Mm,
Okay.
thanks, Emma. So, thinking about what inspired you to come to this session this evening, and we're so glad that you have, with questions or even just kind of with your open minds about things that you're looking for. What kind of questions do you have remaining, or what kind of insights have you gleaned? Who would like to go? I'm looking to see if I can see any hands up, and I may go back in. Any hands up um to participate? Get rid of chat a second. Emma, do you want to stop sharing just a second? That might
I'm sorry, I thought I
thank you.
had
Oh, no,
actually.
it's okay. That's great. Is there anybody who would like to? Because we are all ears, and if we can't answer right away, we'll absolutely be sure to make sure it's included in the follow-up document that you're all going to get subsequent to tonight's session.
Hello, can you hear me at all?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
great. Thanks,
can.
Dylan.
Hi. Hello, that's all right. I've my daughter's recently asked to do Roblox, and my worry is even though I let them have screen time, it's mostly to do their school homework and do the BBC games and the educational side of certain stuff. But Roblox, it does worry me in the sense of the content that's on it and the stuff that you've been speaking about. And the parental controls that they've got, like you said, that's just come out, is a game changer in a sense for it. But I just still don't feel um it's safe enough, and I think get the t kids are too young to be really in this space and be able to do it. I know we're all digitally focused now. You know, we've got AI, we've got Copilot, everything's going through and all that. It's just I just don't think it's safe enough, and I don't understand why we, as even schools and stuff, are promoting to be using it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, and it's a really interesting one actually because I kind of battled with this as well. How old's your daughter, Dylan?
So she's 9.
Okay. And I did battle with this a few years ago because I just thought, they've got all these things. They've got things they can play with in the garden. They've got books, they've got colouring, they've got artwork. Why do they need screens? And what it came down to for me, not with my eldest child, because as I've touched on, he has autism and actually it gave him
Yeah,
such a wonderful safe space. So that's a slightly separate thing. But with my youngest, I found that there was an element of him I say missing out, and that sounds quite dramatic. A lot of
yeah,
his friends
yeah,
were playing these games. Now, what I would say is there's a group of them at school who play these games, and actually, in terms of what's available on Roblox, they play the very wholesome, gentle content. They play Adopt Me, where you adopt little animals and you can turn unicorns into things, and it's all quite lovely. But I'm not naive to the fact that sometimes they may well stumble upon something that's not quite so wholesome. Now, what I would say is there are two children in the class that I'm aware of who don't play Roblox, and I'm aware of them because my child tells me, because they play Roblox in real life in the playground, okay? And they reenact the games they've been playing. And actually, that's why we explored it with my youngest, because I wanted to kind of give him that chance to interact. And I was conscious that that was such a focus for so many children. Now, that's not me saying, Dylan, that, no, you should let your daughter have it because we don't want her to miss out. I'm not saying that at all. She's not missing out at all. But I think sometimes there's that, like with adolescence, actually, a few of you have said you've seen it. I wonder how many people out there have seen it just because everybody's talking about it.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's a similar kind of thing. It's what children are talking about. And then inevitably be children in every school who get kind of unrestricted screen time. And then there'll be children who don't have screen time at all. And then there'll be many,
yeah.
many children somewhere in the middle. And I think it's just about making it safe. Now, I agree with you actually, Dylan, with Roblox. I'm not sure it's quite there in terms of safety. And I was really reflecting on this yesterday when I was putting these slides together. My issue with Roblox is something has to happen to be reported to be removed. So we almost have to experience that thing that isn't very nice to get rid of it. And wouldn't it be wonderful if actually there was something in place to filter that from ever reaching our children? And I think that's the real concern. And I don't know what the answer is there because it is user generated. And we'd love to think that everybody that creates these games for children are doing so from a wonderful, heartfelt place to help them learn, to help them play,
Of
and help them
course.
have fun. Of course, we know that's not necessarily the case. That said, there are many, many games out there that are lots of fun for children. I know at the moment, I don't know, be interested in the chat actually. If I go through some Roblox games, I know that particularly with my child and his friends at the moment, Brookhaven is very popular. I know Dandy's World is very popular. What else do they play? Dress to Impress is very popular, where they have to dress as a certain theme. So all these things are they can be quite lovely, but of course aren't without risk.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is lovely that they can do certain things and be creative, and
Mm,
it's a different creative space.
yeah,
It's just the fact that because you, like you say, it depends on the publisher and what grade they put it at,
absolutely.
and that is the issue. That is what shouldn't there not be like a regulator where they should be every game that goes through needs to be regulated by
Yeah,
them people, and then it
yeah.
can be published.
And
Mhm.
actually, let's just say, of course, tonight was about online gaming, but let's just think for a minute. So if you're keen for your daughter to have access to games, there are, of course, the games that are probably what we would have played a little bit more typically that you go out and buy. So you go out and buy the game, or you can download it now because so much of it is digital content rather than a
Yeah.
physical, disc or cartridge or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe it's about going and finding some games that she can play that are just for her, or maybe it's something you could do together. Dylan, in an ideal world, I'd be saying, well, how about as parents then we go on Roblox and we play the games first? But in an that would be wonderful if we could all do that. But of course, we can't all do that.
No, no.
And because we've got people playing and interacting, just because it was wonderfully safe when we played it doesn't necessarily mean it will be tomorrow. But if your daughter's interested in gaming, maybe it would be about going out and finding a game. Things like Mario Kart and Mario Party and the Pokemon games that you can, insert into the device. You can play them together as a family. She can play them on
Yeah.
her own, safe in the knowledge that it is safe and appropriate.
But on the flip side, sorry, I don't want to take everybody
No,
else's
it's
time
okay.
up,
I
but
left some time for this because I suspected we may have some conversation.
so on the flip side of that, when you do get the whole scenario of where they've seen something bad or heard something bad and they report that,
Mm.
how do you go about supporting them and telling them this is not right, that is not right, and how it should be? What's the best way, a method about that then?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a tricky one. And of course, we've all got our own ways with our own children. But my advice would be exactly the same way as you would if it was something that had happened in real life. So just because these children that they're playing with are potentially strangers, it's only the same as somebody in the classroom saying something unkind or doing something unkind. It's about having that conversation of, why do we think they acted that way? How maybe could they act? And thank you so much for sharing that with me. And then, of course, and this would be your call to make, of course, but if it is a child that you do know in real life as well, I personally would always have that conversation with their parents too.
Yeah,
Because if it was my child, I would want to know.
fair enough. Okay, that's
Um,
fine.
I
Thank
think,
you.
Dylan, you asked a brilliant question
yeah.
because if you are ill at ease about what your daughter could be seeing, I think you're entirely at liberty to set a boundary that right now it's too early. You're still learning about it, and until you're satisfied around certain things, you don't need to allow anything to happen. Um, and that is absolutely fine. And she might not like it, but actually that's also teaching a really important thing as well, that instead of jumping into things which could be really risky and precarious and ever changing, that was the thing that was such a shock to me to realize that, it isn't, oh, Roblox is this, it's that it's Morphus. It's this in this moment, and a millisecond later it's something else. And so actually, until you're really truly satisfied, you don't need to allow anything that makes you dissatisfied and uncomfortable.
Brilliant. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Henry, did you have a hand up? It looked like you did, but I wasn't sure if you were just moving. Just moving? That's fine.
Just moving about.
That's absolutely fine. Have we got any more questions? So we will be following this up with the information sheet that will go out to schools. And like I say, it will recap what we've talked about tonight and hopefully answer a few of the questions. But please do get in touch either through the schools or directly through our website and social media, because we really are happy to pick up any questions at all. And that's ongoing as well. That there's no kind of, that it needs to be tomorrow. Please feel free to reach out to us if we can help.
Absolutely. And it'd be great to see as many of you as possible again for the hour that we've got planned on the 1st of May, where we're going to look more around incel culture, because it was interesting what you were saying, Emma, about words being picked up and filtered out, but not necessarily images and emojis, maybe. And that's where there's much more to come around incel culture
Yeah.
and learning about what kind of code young people and adults who have malintent towards young people might be using.
We could actually do a session one day on language that young people use that none of us understand. Because I can see Heidi kind of nodding. My son said something the other day, and I had to say to him, "I'm sorry," and he repeated it. I was like, "But what does that mean? What are these words that you're using?" So that would be great. If anybody wants to lead on that one, we'd be very happy.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you
I think
all
that brings
so
us to an
much.
end.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so
coming this
much, everyone.
evening. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, do stay in touch, as Emma says. And we hope to see the next session and the one in June as well, which is after the Whit Week holiday. And in the meantime, take care.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. Really
everyone.
Thank
useful.
you.
Thank you.
Lots of information, food for thought. So thank you. I
Oh,
mean,
Oh,
good.
thanks
I'm
so much,
sat
Heidi.
sat with my husband here listening, and the children sort of went upstairs, and I thought to start with it was a bit loud because everyone was having tea. So you probably appreciate me being on mute and not be able to see all that. But we've got a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter,
Mm,
son and daughter. And George lives and breathes Roblox and Minecraft, but I've gone on there with him. And I find it quite strange sometimes because if he's playing a game, you need two people sometimes. And I want to see what he's doing. I have
mm,
never known anything like it. I mean, we've done gaming, like you said. My husband and I once had gaming computers, and we'd play all sorts of different games
yeah.
together, roped into playing them, and then quite liked it. And then you sort of not like grow up, but you, because it's a wrong thing to say, because everyone,
Oh, I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
it's got into like PlayStations and Xboxes and things
Yeah.
like that, which my husband will play when he's actually got a minute, which not very often now. But this is all quite a new thing to us, 90s kids ourselves. It's all brand new, so I've had to go, right, okay, so all your friends have Fortnite, but Isabella, George, you're not old enough for this, darling. And actually going through and discussing it with them getting a little bit grumpy and then saying, well, let's leave it and come back to it and discuss it a little bit more. And they seem to get it. They seem to understand, like Facebook as well. I know that's not come up, but Isabella's like, all my friends have got it, and they had it at primary school. A lot of George's friends have got it. I'm like, we're keeping you, it's because it comes from a good place. It's just
Mm,
getting under, getting them to understand that we're not just, stopping their fun and
mm,
things like that, which works well. And obviously, their tablets and their George does have a phone now. As I say, he's in his last year of primary school now. So he's the same age Isabella was, more of a, I'm the youngest of four, and they've all said, do it now, whilst they want to listen before they
yeah.
become those hormones kick in and then they don't want to know. So, I mean, that was good advice. And we always have an open door policy as well. So if George is playing online with a friend on Minecraft, like you said, they could one could suddenly go in there, only access it when George is online,
Yeah.
but George might come away, go and get a drink, come back, and all his building, or I don't know, his diamonds are missing out of his chest, and
And
he's
they
just
spend
like
hours,
wild.
don't they?
And
Hours
it's
putting things together, and
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
devastating for them, actually.
Yeah, and it's navigating those feelings and actually having a chat and coming away and then going back, and it's a new world, and it's very much a learning curve for them as well as it is us, and dealing
Absolutely.
with that outburst and learning navigating from that. But you did say about letting them know it's okay that you haven't won that game, and you know, I think that's just remind them again of once it becomes not fun,
Hmm.
that's the thing we both nodded at, Andrew and I,
Hmm.
saying, yes, that's we haven't done that bit of it.
Yeah.
Everything else seemed to be on par with what we do.
Right.
But that whole when it becomes, it's not fun and you're feeling a little bit stressed or grumpy or, upset
Mhm.
because you didn't win this thing, maybe it's time to come away and
Yeah. You turned it on to have fun, didn't you? So if you're not having fun, it's time to turn.
yeah, I think that's a really good, factor. And we tend to have it on a timer. So when their phones are timed out, they might ask for 5 minutes. And we're like, okay, well, if you tidy your bedroom for 5 minutes, I don't know if this is what you should do. Um,
Get mine to empty the
we'll
bin.
give you 5 minutes. We're,
Yeah.
we're kind of we've just started to do that. But if another thing is YouTube. That's on the television as an app, and they're quite good. You're not allowed to, they've got their own age limits, but the YouTube hasn't on the television.
Mm-hmm.
It has on their tablets. It's kids YouTube,
Yeah.
but not on the telly. So we would say, right, obviously, if something comes on that might have a swear word,
Yeah.
it needs to be changed. It needs to come off. And if you can't be trusted, kind of thing, I think they are quite clever kids, really sensible. Then it will go off, and there will be a ban. And there was a ban, and for the whole weekend, because it is quite a big. And going on to Andrew's phone and typing in password, and this is new to us as well, to give them more time on their tablet. So our 14-year-old did that, but she did it on her brother's devices as well. So he didn't say anything
There's a
until
golden
he
line
went,
in there, isn't there?
"Oh my God!" And I'm like, "That's a really big breach," and really
Yeah.
sneaky, but quite clever. Maybe.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
can't hear me
You admire
upstairs.
that, but we won't tell her.
So we had the whole weekend, no devices,
Yeah.
and they were out on their bikes. They were building um, all sorts of things in the garden with bungee hooks and all sorts, and just genuinely having great fun. And
Yeah.
it just reminded us, right, we need to do a bit more, but not as a punishment, as an actual,
Yeah.
do you know what? That balance.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting you say that, actually, because I think we've had a very recent iPad ban in our house, and it was like having different children for a short period of time. And what I found is since they've been allowed the iPad back, it's just been the default.
Yes,
It was,
100%.
but initially it was you've not got your iPad. Well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, yeah,
Anything else,
yeah,
literally anything else. And then they find that they really enjoy it, actually. And so
yeah.
as parents, sometimes we're a little bit guilty of making it the default too, aren't we?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, we've got a sideboard full of games,
Mm,
and they're collecting dust. The
mhm.
electric went off
Same here.
in Staple Grove, and they were like, "Oh, I'm just going to go upstairs. I'll do this. I'm going to watch this film." Or I'm like, "Oh, I can't. I can't. I can't." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Let's go in the sideboard."
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think I catch myself sometimes. I was very honest with Trudy about this yesterday. Even tonight, Mum's got to work a little bit later tonight, but you can have an hour on your iPads.
Uh,
That now actually, I could have been
yeah.
a little bit more inventive there. I could have said, but you can go and do some drawing, or you can do this, but I didn't.
It's that easy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as parents, it can be a
Oh, oh, you're
sorry, my
back.
sister bugged me. I'm sorry. It can be a sin, but also it can be really quite good.
Yeah.
I think we are naturally all guilty of that sometimes, where it's like, right, well, you can have 10 minutes if you do your Duolingo, please.
Yeah.
And then what time's left, you can do this.
Yeah.
Think, right, I'll quickly just put the dishwasher on, or
Yeah. It is.
yeah, so
It can be brilliant. It just needs to be monitored.
monitored
Yeah.
100%. Thank you very much from both
So
of us. Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for
Thank
joining us
you.
and
Hi,
for your thoughts at the end. That was really lovely to hear.
No,
Yeah,
both
thank you.
fabulous. Really good. Have a good evening. Thank you.
You
You
too.
too.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Heidi.
Heidi.
Bye.
Bye.